The following movie is rated R.
Welcome back to the R-Rated Podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about how to manage your actors. I know that not every actor is the same. I mean, obviously, every actor has the same intention when coming onto set, which is creating, a beautiful masterpiece, but also really embracing character and getting in tune and in touch with their feelings. But, when you have all these different types of people on set, there's different personalities, different types of energies. So a director comes in and basically helps manage all of that and make sure everything's in order and not, people aren't killing themselves and jumping on each other and, yelling over each other saying, like, listen to me. Like, the director is there to basically assist and manage the whole production and make sure that all these people are there to do the job and no one's stepping on each other's toes. And if there is any questions, because, when you are managing such a big production, everyone is there to do their job and everyone knows what they're doing, but you still have to have someone in charge of it all, because if you don't, there's still a possibility that chaos can happen, or that, something unexpected can come up, and you definitely need at least one person knowing what they are doing, right? But to make it easier, you break it down and you have all these different departments that are kind of taking care, like the key head departments that are taking care of different things on the production. So a main thing that a director does is manage the actors, as I said before. And if you have watched any of the other, or watched or listened to any of the other podcast episodes, in the earlier episodes, you would have learned or heard that the responsibilities of a director, kind of like what the job is, what is expected, what you need to do, how to prep for that. But this episode is going to focus solely on how to manage your different types of actors, because like I said, there's different personalities. You can't always expect everyone to be, the same type of performer. So you have to essentially figure out, how are you going to get this performance out of this actor when you get to set, or ideally before, because you want to be prepared and not have set be the first time that you went over these lines. What is most commonly heard is people being confused on how it's possible that a director is like just directing a whole production of people, especially when there's big scenes with all these extras running around, like in the city, when, like, for example, like the movie 2012, when the world's ending and everyone's like running around. And I think people who aren't filmmakers think it's quite hard to wrap their head around how you would manage all those types of people, how you would cue everyone, how everybody would know when to come out, where to run, and like when the perfect timing is. But that is basically all with communication and knowing your actors. First, let's start with background actors. Background actors are essentially the actors that are in the scene, that are, filling the space, making sure that it looks like a real set. It doesn't look like a movie set. No one's there. It looks like, a real restaurant where people are eating, and, there's families, there's couples, there's first dates, whatever. So that's when the background actors come in. And essentially, you want to make sure that they're doing a realistic, act, even though you may think like, oh, they don't have any lines, like, and they're just filling space, like, who cares what, like, they're saying or doing? It's actually not true. It's really important, because let's just say it's, a love movie, and the background actor is, acting like he just escaped a mental hospital, and he's like talking to himself in the background and like, he's sitting in the booth behind the main couple that's falling in love. So that would be distracting to the movie, to the audience, and it wouldn't really make sense to the story. So you want to make sure that your background actors are matching the story of what's happening, and that really everyone's reacting in the right way. Because, the main thing about acting is reacting. So I feel like that's just like the base foundation that every filmmaker, every actor, every person in the film industry should know, because without reacting, you're not really going to give a solid performance. Because even in our regular daily lives, when we have conversations with people, um, you're going to get a reaction. And even if people don't react to you, that's also a reaction. So you're going to be frustrated that that person didn't react to you. So you want to make sure that your background actors are mouthing the right things, because, like I said, you want it to make sense to the scene, but you can't actually be talking. Because if the actors in the back are, talking about something interesting, having a cool side conversation, it's going to distract the actors. And then when the director calls cut, then you can resume to talking normally until you go for another scene. But essentially, you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, especially your background actors, because they add so much to every scene, even if it doesn't seem like it initially. Because you might be going to you might go to the movie theater to go see the Ryan Gosling, or like Scarlett Johansson or Jennifer Lawrence. You want to go for these big name people, so you're not really thinking about all the background actors. But if you took a second to watch those big movies and like look actually at the background actors, you realize like they all fit to the story, even if they are not speaking or saying anything directly to the main character. Even if they're just passing by or opening a door in the background, there's a reason to why that person is doing that. Because essentially, you don't want to have random stuff in a story that doesn't make sense, or in the movie. Because in the movie, you have about an hour and 30 minutes. Nowadays you've been getting longer films, like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. We even got some 3-hour films, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So you have occasionally your films that are longer. But think about it, in an hour and a half, you have a lot to cover. And it's not like a book where everything's drawn out and you have more time to have a character development. Like, things have to cut to the chase quicker in a movie. So essentially, you have to decide as a director what is important in the story and what is not. Like, what really is going to, have the audience think, oh, that makes sense. Like, that, why that character did that. For example, if it was let's just stick with the love story scenario, since that's what I said in the first part. So if the opening scene is her, at her apartment, and we're trying to figure out if this girl's single, does she date a lot? Why is she single? Is she recently single? What's the situation? We want to set up her room to be like that, and make sure that that character, the actor, is getting ready for that performance. So essentially, as a director, when they hire all these different actors, there's so many talented actors, but sometimes you just make sure, as a when you're casting and going through the casting process, that you're casting someone that really fits the character, not only from the description of the script, but emotionally brings out those connections, those feelings with the other characters, maybe the other performers playing the other roles. Or if they take direction well, that helps so much with managing actors. Because as you work with more actors, everyone is talented, everyone has great ideas. So sometimes different input gets involved. But as a director, you really have to make sure to take charge and make the executive decision of saying, like, this is a good way to go about the scene. You're reacting to someone telling you that they don't love you, and they haven't loved you for the last couple months. They've just been with you because they didn't have the heart to break up with you. Like, how do you have an actor prepare for that? You can't just like say, oh, like I just said that, like that's the situation, and then be like, so give me that. So give me heartbreak. Like, that's not really specific enough. I would say, if you want to get emotion, like if that was a scene and you want to get that emotion out, you would try to say something like, so for example, when your first love, your first boyfriend you've ever had, or first girlfriend, um you were super excited, it was young love, you thought like this was gonna be it, you're gonna marry this person, but it's just funny to think about because you don't even know yourself yet, right? But you take that young, innocent, deep, pure love and just try to put yourself back into that like free spirit, young love of like how you love that relationship and how deep you let yourself fall, and taking that pain times like 10. And so you almost have to let the actor give themselves a chance to put themselves in that emotion. It doesn't come just instantly. Like maybe they would, need a couple of seconds, minutes to get into character. You want to give them easy ways to go about the scene, like easy solutions, not make it confusing by giving them like a whole paragraph of notes of instructions of how they should go about the scene, like, oh, do this, this, that. Then the actor is going to be overthinking it the whole time and sitting there like being like, wait, did I do this for this part? Did I say this here? Wait, did I forget? Did I move the cup though when it's just like way too distracting. So the best way to go about it is let them run the scene first, see how they play it out, see how the actors, feel naturally the character should be or how they think it would be in their head. And then just make adjustments and tweaks and give them notes. Um, you know, Sometimes the most beautiful, magical things that come to screen is when people collaborate. So it's like when the actor and the director come together of like how the character should be or how they imagine it or like how they see it or like how this character can be the full, 100% version of itself the way that it's written in the script. So it's really cool to see like what can happen when two creatives can collaborate. But with that also always comes, butting heads. It's not all fun and glamorous. Sometimes, you have your actors that have had years of experience on set and they think maybe like, oh, the scene, goes this way, but maybe the director had it in mind a different way. So you have to learn and navigate how to communicate what you want on screen and how you want it delivered, even though you're working with very experienced actors that have been doing this for a very long time. Obviously there's different ways to approach actors and how to go about directing. There's different directing styles. I'm a very hands-on director myself personally. If I speak from experience, I like to rehearse, be there, but like I said, run out the scene, play it out, see how they go about it, see if it's something that feels natural to them before giving them notes and adjusting. Because I just feel like you should see, what they're like and how they envision it before you start giving notes and all this kind of things. There's going to be directors that will, you know, be like me, that will kind of, let you do your thing, but also give you your notes, kind of work with you to get what they want from the scene. But then there will also be the directors that have it very specifically in their head and want you to follow it exactly how they have it. So you're going to have them also kind of try to play mind and trick games with you. It kind of sounds messed up, but for example, um, in the movie The Shining, to get the wife to be, so hysterical and feel like everyone's being mean to her, or like that her husband's being mean to her, she has no one to talk to, and like the director actually started treating her kind of, not saying that this is the right way, but to kind of really get her into that method acting of like you're alone, like everyone's frustrated at you, like you have to survive, like you're on your own out here, we're all like waiting, like just like frustration and like exhaustion of just like doing this like forever, this film for days in the cold and all that. Like when she would do the scene, he'd be like, "We're all waiting on you," like kind of in a very extreme matter, but it put her in a stressful environment and mental state that made her almost portray the character better and be able to really fully deliver that like hysteria of running through the hotel in The Shining. So, there's a lot of different ways to go about directing. I mean, every director has different styles. Like, you know, it seems like the bigger the director, maybe the less. Well, I don't know. It's not necessarily always true because there are some directors that, you know, really let the actors just do their thing and kind of they're there just kind of for support and let them vibe it out, right? There'll be some big directors even that will let the scene play out, let the actors do their thing, and then you won't even know that they yelled cut. They'll just be like, when you're ready. And then the actors begin and they start acting and, you know, you kind of shoot everything, you get what you have. And that's another style of directing. Like there isn't really 100% like a rule book of like, this is how you need to do it, because everyone makes, everyone connects with people differently. And essentially directing is like connecting with people, connecting with your actors, your talent, getting that performance, getting that truth out and that vulnerability. So, it's hard to like say you do it like bullet point by this point. But at least these are like some steps and tips and differences. You can see how people direct and kind of see what works for your style, or what methods work better with your actors and stuff. But some tips that I definitely have are, if you're a director, definitely take some acting classes, or theater or something, just so you can understand the craft of acting and what actors are, putting themselves through, what's expected of them, kind of how to go about it. Because it's really easy for someone to tell you like, do this, do that, or like the best way to approach this, or act more sad or give me more of it. Like it's easy to do that, but can you put yourself in their shoes and give that same performance that you're expecting, right? So I suggest definitely, if you're a director, to try an acting class, just to see what is expected on the other side and really put yourself in their shoes. And that way, I think it gives you another point of view and perspective on how to really go about directing, because then you've experienced it and you know that, okay, when I, was in that situation and had to act like this, it wasn't as easy as I thought. So maybe I can approach it, this way, or say it this way, just to switch it up. During rehearsals, there are no mistakes. You are living your truth. You're going to be creative. You're going to act and feel how you feel is right in the moment. And I just really feel like as a director, it's not your place to step in and give adjustments so soon, especially in the rehearsal stage, because we're still like learning and like understanding like what works, what doesn't, what the chemistry, what the vibe is with the other actor. Maybe it's not a love story and it's, relationship that hates each other, right? And they want revenge and they're trying to kill each other. How are you going to prepare for that? So it's like, let them play it out, let the actors rehearse it, see how they feel like it should play out, and then shape the characters and the story and the scene from that. Don't, try and do too much. Just literally let the artists play it out, act it out, and then essentially shape your scene from there. But I think when you do that, you do get the best kind of results from your actors, because I feel like the mutual respect is there. They know, like, okay, they trust me enough to, kind of carry half the weight of the scene, but then they come in with the other half of the weight and, make sure that it's delivering to the full potential that it can. And I feel like because the term director, like it just seems so like I'm in charge, like I want to be in control of this and that and that. Like it is, but at the same time, it's a job that is about connecting and being vulnerable and kind of um, having that like close friendship, almost like therapist kind of style relationship too, because you're opening up about things that maybe you necessarily wouldn't open up about with just anybody. And I think that's what makes it special also, like with all my relationships with my talent in the last few films that I've had. I really like creating a special and real bond, because at the end of the, I mean, besides making friends, obviously it's amazing to have extra friends, but when you have that trust there, between the director and actor, the type of emotions that you can get on screen is truly fascinating. I don't think it can compare if like with like other types of scenes that don't have that strong connection and bond. And it might sound cheesy, like, oh, like what do you mean by that? Like you have to like pour your feelings out to like get a good performance always. Like, I mean, not necessarily always, but to get like, you know, to get people really like get those heartstrings moving, like you kind of have to like be really vulnerable, with your actor and your director. And it's like, I it's a lot easier sometimes to say that, because obviously like the actor is the one having to really be vulnerable, opening up to the director so that the director can use those points throughout shooting, to get them back in that headspace. Because like on set there's so much going on that there might be a moment where the actor just had crafties and they're full, so they're not necessarily in that headspace of like, oh my god, like in the next scene I have to literally cry because it was a funeral scene and break down emotionally. But I just had like a whole pack of sour skittles. How am I gonna like do that without being distracted? And that essentially, is where the director comes in to make sure to get you to that spot that we rehearsed, right? To that emotional, distraught breakdown at the funeral scene that we had rehearsed prior to the shoot day. Another tip that I want to give, that could help anybody directing, is let the scene play out and shoot everything. I know that you're there and you want to like, you're excited and you want to yell cut right away because you're like, okay, I'm going to move on to the next scene. But let that scene play out, because maybe you get something at the very end that you didn't think that you were going to get, and it could just really be the cherry on top to that ending part of the scene. Or sometimes the actors will just do something naturally that they didn't even think about, and it just fits perfectly. Shoot everything, because you don't know what you're going to end up using, and at the end of the day it might be something very useful that you could use at the end of editing, and it might be that little extra cherry on top that you really wanted and you didn't even expect that you had it. And sometimes the actors will just do their own thing, and you won't even realize that they won't even realize that they're rolling, and then you got this voila cherry on top extra. Another tip is let the scene play out. Even if you think that you're not going to need this footage and you're worried about other people waiting on you, and you feel like pressure of like, oh, the scene needs to be done because we need to move forward. Don't rush the art. You're the director. This is the film. This is your job. Your job is to make sure that the actors have a great performance. No one's going to care when they're sitting in the movie theater and the performance is not like what they expected, or the film doesn't deliver to their expectations. They're not going to be sitting in there thinking like, oh, poor director, like they were feeling the pressure of the crew members, and rush through the process, and that's why they didn't get the performance that they needed. The audience won't understand that. So you have to put those feelings aside and really think about it and be like, okay, what is, what can I do to bring out the emotions in this short amount of time that we do have on set? But at the same time, don't rush it. Like if you feel, the scene needs to be, you need another take, or you wanted to draw out, don't call action right away. Just because the lines end doesn't mean that you need to call action right away. I know it feels like a lot of like pressure of like, oh no, like, the lines are over. Like what should I say now? Or like, what should she do? Or, like I should just yell cut so it's not like awkward. And then there's like silence. Sometimes those like moments, those silence moments, those are the key ones that you end up needing in your film and really add that extra touch. So, really let those scenes drag on. Don't rush it. Don't worry about what your crew members are saying. Don't worry if you feel like, you know, there's a delay. Obviously, like, you're not trying to go overtime or anything, but I'm also saying don't feel like just because everyone is working really fast around you doesn't mean you have to rush through the actual acting part, rehearsing, preparing for the scenes, and delivering it. Because at the end of the day, you're putting all this money in and all this work and working quick to deliver an amazing film. And it's like they're doing that so that the director can have that extra time and that space to create more magic on the on the screen with the actors. So in a sense, there's a lot going on, but you have a big title, you're managing a lot of people, but you can't let that scare you. You can't let that intimidate you. You just got to remember to learn how to talk to everyone. You're going to encounter different types of personalities, different types of people with more or lesser experience. So, you just got to see how to deal with those types of people. And, everyone's different. So maybe if one set wasn't, the best or the most ideal, I'm sure there will be another one where you can make up for that, or it can be different, or you can change something that you didn't like on the last set. So I would say, honestly, every set is a learning experience. It's never really, like, the process is expected, like, same old thing as, like, you prepare for the film. There's, like, certain things that a director has to do before the film. Then the director has to do certain tasks on set, and then obviously after in post-production. But like, that's all standard, but you never know what things that will happen on set, how you're going to handle and deal with that. So you kind of just have to be prepared for that. And you can't be intimidated by situations that approach you, out of nowhere or seem very intimidating at first, because on a film set, you encounter a lot of those. But that is one of the major tips. Let the scene play out. Don't yell cut. Sometimes it's happened to me. Like, you make that mistake where you're like, all right, the scene ended, cut. But after you get in the hang of it, you realize, like, okay, no, there's no reason to yell cut right away. Like, we're all here for a reason to make this film freaking amazing. So let the process run through. Cut it when it feels emotionally right. And that's what I've been, like, doing. And it honestly really does feel like such a difference. Like, when you watch the actors and you see the chemistry unfold on set, and you see, like, I don't, like, tend to look at my crew members, like, their reaction or anything. Like, when I'm on set directing, like, it's just me and the actors, like, looking at them, making sure that I can get lost in the world on set. Because I always think to myself, if I can get lost in the world on set, then the audience can for sure get lost in it when they're, sitting in the theater or at home watching it. Because, if I'm able to emotionally get attached and connect to the story, when I literally know the whole production, what's going on, and, like, I kind of am controlling it. But at the same time, you can't control everything. So, like, you're putting the fate into other people's hands. Like, you're like, this is my vision. This is how I think it should go. This is how I feel it should go. Now help me deliver this. And then the whole crew and team does that, right? So you have to have that trust in more than one person, more than just a talent. So basically, when that whole thing unfolds and you just, like, see it happen in front of you, and it's, like, already emotional, already just, like, such a scene, such a mood, I feel like that's when like, okay, like, this is on the right track. It's most likely going to do really well. Just because you already kind of felt something in the process of shooting. And like I said, if you feel like, okay, well, maybe, that's kind of biased because you're directing. So of course you're going to think, like, it's good. Because if you are not confident in your own stuff, who's going to be confident, right? And, like, who's going to believe in your work if you don't believe in yourself? So I totally get that aspect of it too. But I do also like the first 2 takes, I would say, I kind of like immerse myself and I'm like, how do I feel when I watch this? Is this like drawing me in 100%? Like, really trying to get lost in it on set, even though there's like 30 crew members around me. Um, and then after 2 takes, I observe how my crew members, right, are kind of taking in the scene of the acting, not like just like scouting the room, kind of just like glancing, seeing like how's the room taking it in. And if it seems like, okay, like most of the room is taking it well, then we can move on. But if I can't really tell how the room's reading it, I want to usually do another take. But like I said, there's no rush on how many takes to do. At the end of the day, I feel like it's better to have more than less, because if you only, let's say, have 3 takes for every scene, it's like, yeah, you're getting everyone out quick, and the process is probably really quick, and I don't know, and you want it to be smooth. I don't know if it's going to be smooth, but you want it to be quick and smooth. But at the same time, it's like you're limited in the editing room now to those 3 scenes. When if you just let it run a little more, you might get 6 scenes. So maybe if there's something you didn't like in the other 3 scenes, you can go to the other 3 and you still have something you can cut from each scene and, just cut together. And it helps. Like, even sometimes when something doesn't even have to do with the scene, but you need like a reaction, you can take a reaction from another scene and put it in the scene that you like, because maybe the performance in the other scene wasn't that good. So it's like it helps so much with like just switching things and like really editing to what you want it to be. So I highly recommend going for more takes. Don't hesitate, like, to take your time. It might seem like, oh, a lot of pressure, like people are waiting on me, like I need to hurry. But no, you're the director. You know what's going to sell. You know what's emotional. You know what's going to draw you in and your audience. So just be positive and stay confident. And so will your crew. And if the talent sees that you believe in them, you're comfortable, you're confident in them, they're just going to want to bring a better performance out. If they see you like kind of nervous, like sitting there, like not talking to them, kind of avoiding them, like intimidation is not good. Like, you're the director. You shouldn't be intimidated by your talent, let alone your crew. This is a team effort. It's a movie. You want to do it together. So it should never feel like it's divided. All right, moving on to the next part of the podcast episode. We're going to talk about how to direct kids. I've actually had the pleasure of directing kids in a few of my films. My very first film that I ever directed had twins in it, and they were playing the age 12. So I had a lot to learn, because it's a very different experience than when you work with actors over the age of 18. It's so much fun though. Like, I definitely recommend doing it if you've never done it before. Working with kids is so special. I especially gravitated towards it because I have spent all my life nannying. Like, literally, I feel like I've been nannying for like at least 10 to 11 years now. When I was like 14, I used to babysit all the like kids in the family, and then it would go to neighbors, and I would get babysitting jobs and progress. So I definitely have already felt really comfortable working with kids, and I think that was just a bonus for me. But I think these tips would just help out any director on set. So yeah, hopefully they help you out. The first tip that I would have is, if you have any kids on set, obviously you're going to be required to get a studio teacher who's going to be on set working with the kids, the children, doing homework or schoolwork while there's downtime on set. And usually when there's downtime, they have like their separate space area where they can hang out and get their work done. Usually it's another room, so it's not distracting while the rest of the crew is setting up. But there is a mandatory studio teacher recommended on requirement. Sorry, not recommended. It's required on set, because you're taking the child away from the schooling hours. especially because, shoot days are usually 12-hour days. So if you're shooting during the week, if they're missing school, you have to make up for that on set. So if they're not working, they would be on school. I mean, they would be studying with a teacher. But the cool thing is, though, if it's on a weekend, you're shooting on a weekend, the kids don't actually have to do homework. A studio teacher still has to be there to, ask them, like, hey, are you comfortable? Is everything okay? Do you have any work that's due on Monday? Like, just kind of to check in, kind of like a chaperone, and that's like guardian chaperone, watching over them on set, basically. But on the weekends, it is a little bit more chill. So when I did film my intermediate film, The Years of Faith, which is on YouTube, my girls that play Fiona and Faith, such amazing talent. They blew me away. They were just they gave me such a good and natural and easy first experience that, when you have such a good first experience, it's almost like you expect it, like you almost expect that every other time, but every film is a different experience. Not saying that it's not, or that it wasn't like that, but you can't always have the expectation of every film being the same. But it was just so much fun to work with them because this wasn't their first acting experience either. So they had some, experience, kind of how it goes. And that way, I think it was a good collab. But anyway, the best tip that I could give is definitely making sure that the children or the child on set is comfortable, because children are children. They get intimidated. Imagine when you were like a little kid and that big, like, you start school when everyone's like trying to, like, everyone's looking at you when you step into class. Like, it's intimidating. But if you have someone on set that is like, maybe gets them like crafties and then has like candy, like, just show like the little things, like, hey, like, we're here to make you comfortable. I know it's a big scary set, but there's people here that you can talk to, that you're not alone, just so that trust and that comfortability is there. It can even just be like checking in, on the kid, like, hey, like, I'm the director. You're going to be spending time with the student teacher when, we're not working together on scenes. But if you have any questions, or if you need anything, like this, let's say Chris, the PA, can help you and get this for you. Or if you need this, like, ask this person, just so that kid feels like they have availability and accessibility to people and things around set, and they don't feel like, oh, I'm trapped and I'm on this big scary set and I don't know what to do. So I would say that's a very big thing that will help out your experience having child actors in your film. Another good tip that I want to give, it might sound a little silly, but hide your frustration. I know it sounds like, what? Like, why would you be frustrated? But, sometimes on set, like, stress levels are high. Maybe you're not getting the performance that you expected or wanted, or you're on a time crunch, or something fell apart, something broke. So that stress comes in and you're feeling a little agitated. Well, children really pick up on any type of energy that you're feeding off or giving off, more than adults. So it's best that you hide your frustration. If they're not giving you the performance that you expect, take a second, approach it with a positive and good attitude, because children work better with you, approaching them with a positive attitude versus seeing that you're frustrated and being like, oh, let's do it again, but can you do this? You know what I mean? Like, it will intimidate the child. So it is better to approach it in a soft manner. Or if you just seem like, oh, I just can't seem to get that frustration out, I can't like snap out of it quick enough, have the AD maybe talk to the child actor if it is too much in that moment. But I really feel like, take a second, let yourself cool down, let that positive energy creep back in, and then approach the child star, the child actor. Just because children do get intimidated by these big scary adults, and like I said, on a big movie set, there's a lot going on. So the better the relationship with the director, the less intimidating, I think, the better the performance. As I said earlier, you want to make sure that your crafties are stacked up with lots of sugar, but also stuff that can get the kids going throughout the day. I mean, not even just the kids, the whole crew and cast. Because if they're feeling, tired and low energy, like, oh, I didn't have like any sugar, or like, oh, I had too much sugar, that's also not good. Then you're not going to get the performance that you want and need. So you definitely need to make sure that there's a PA, kind of making sure that the kids are always drinking their water, especially if it's really hot out. Sometimes in these 90-degree days, we forget how hot it is, and especially when we're working, we forget to drink water. So, not only as the director's job to take care of talent, but you kind of have to almost have someone assigned, like, make sure that we have water for this kid after every scene, or he's drinking water after every scene, because dehydration and feeling overworked can happen really easily with children. They're not used to putting in so many hours. Like, even when they're at school, like, they only go from like 6 to 8 hours a day, let's say. So they're not used to working these long 12-hour days. So you have to keep that in mind when you're working with children on set, that they're going to get tired, they're going to need breaks. If you don't need them in the scene, let them go back, let them, eat, drink water, use the bathroom. It might sound silly, but they need to use the bathroom and they need to drink water all the time. So it's definitely good that, you have someone kind of on it, so that way the director can focus with the rest of the actors. Because most of the time, you're directing children on set, child actors, you're most likely going to have to direct their parents or the adults in the scene as well. So if the kids are not in that scene, you're not going to necessarily be able to be like, oh, walk off and like be like, bye, see you guys later, and hang out with the child star all day, or the child actor. You're going to have to still keep directing the rest of the scene. So you want to make sure you have a trustable PA taking care of the children when they're not with the student teacher doing their homework on set. And adding to that, definitely keep the duration of shooting short. You don't need to drag it out at all, just because kids get impatient, they get tired, especially standing around and having to do the same thing over and over and over. It gets exhausting. So the best thing you can do is keep the scenes short. Make sure that in this case, get 2 takes and then let him go back. If it looks good in those 2 takes, let him go back, let him chill. Don't overwork the child. I know I said previously, let all the scenes draw out. Don't call cut when you don't like. If you don't want to, take as many takes as you want to. But when you work with children actors, it's different. You have to let them, have their breaks and really give them their space, because if not, they're gonna be cranky, and it's gonna all hell's literally gonna break loose on set. So you definitely want to make sure that you keep the scenes short. Like, when if they're not needed, if they already nailed the performance, let them go. Let them get water. Don't let them sit around waiting while the guy is tweaking lights or moving a camera or changing a filter. That all takes too long. Let the kid go on its break, eat some snacks. Only when we're really ready to shoot, bring the kid back on. It sounds bougie. It sounds like really like, oh, come on, the kid can't wait on standby for like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Honestly, those 20 minutes, he or she could be resting, learning lines, getting ready. Instead, they're standing there maybe in the heat or the cold. It's just, trust me, if you want a better performance and if you want to be on the children's good side, let them go back and eat some sugar. If you have a bigger set and you don't want the kids to go all the way back to the trailer, or go to wherever they have been hanging out, so you want to still keep them on standby, but they're setting up, but you're worried about, oh my god, like the children, like they can't be bored and we can't overwork them. Definitely just have like a little section post up for them, like a little chair, maybe a water bottle, and make sure that there's like someone there to like keep them entertained, just so they don't feel like they're standing around too much. Because at the end of the day, kids get really tired after staying for a really long time. But if they're sitting and let's say you're talking to them, giving some drinks, you're shortening the time of them just sitting around what feels like they're not doing anything, even though a lot is going on set. Like obviously when you're directing, like there's constantly stuff going on. You're making sure that everyone's setting up, doing what they need to do. You make sure that the actors are getting prepared. But when you're working with child actors, you don't want to overwork them. You want to make sure that they're comfortable and situated. So sometimes it's nice to have that extra pair of eyes to overlook and watch them, just so you know that they're really getting those breaks that they need. Because sometimes there's kids that are shy and they don't feel like, oh, I can, express myself or how I really feel to the director or like all these people. And sometimes, your mom's not always going to be there on set. And I feel like a lot of kids get intimidated when the parents do leave. I mean, there's definitely been times where they definitely kept the parents on set because they're like, all right, we don't want to have to deal with maybe the kid crying. But the kid was young, like maybe 4 or 5. So I understood that. But I think after a certain age, like anything above like 10 or something, parents aren't necessarily allowed to be just lurking around. So it's good to have someone to count on set that's going to be in charge of the kids when they're not, shooting and the director's not rehearsing with them. Another thing that I would recommend is to mimic instead of acting. It sounds funky, it sounds weird, but kids honestly learn and memorize better when you mimic them. All right, sorry, not when you mimic, when they get to mimic you. It might sound strange, it might sound funny, like, oh, like why would they mimic you or, copy you when they're here to act and it's a performance and that's what they're trying to do? Well, kids just learn easier typically doing that than reading lines or like trying to learn a script. I've noticed that sometimes they get a little hesitant and a little nervous, a little shy when reading the lines. So it's a little easier sometimes to approach younger actors by just kind of showing them exactly like what you would want them to do. Like, for example, if I was like, act like you burned yourself. Act like this microphone is hot and you burned yourself. If I was like, okay, let's read the script together to this young girl or boy, and I was like, okay, so, here it says she burns herself. So then you're going to touch the mic and then you're going to burn yourself. This might confuse like a little child or, they might just be like, okay, like overthinking it. And then like they're thinking about it more than giving the performance. So it's almost easier and better to just kind of show them what you want. For example, if, the mic is hot and that's what I want, I could be like, okay, maybe when you're about to touch the mic, do something like this. Ah, 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 or if, and then, the kid would try it. Or if you, wanted to make adjustments, then you could just be like, oh, maybe try something a little more like, or less like, grunts or whatever. Just basically less notes is better. And I think it's just less confusing, especially for children. So mimicking is definitely a good option to try. I know it sounds funny, but I've noticed it works with a lot of the children actors, and it has been beneficial to me, and I think to talent as well. It's funny because it's very different from directing adult actors. Those are just some techniques that I think will help and benefit you when you're directing your film or if you're practicing, different directing techniques. These are good steps to help prepare you. And I hope that, all these different tips can just open different perspectives when directing. Obviously, everyone is different and has different techniques, but maybe there's something you can take away from my process that can work. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll make sure to see you guys next week on the R-Rated Podcast.